This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. Stay tuned for further instructions.
Hey! Yeah, we broke the ceiling. We going from broke to billions. Sex up next, yeah, we plotting the pump. No vex for a hex, yeah, we locking it up. Post chain, no, we not in a rut. With a heart like Richard the Marcus, we best. I'm a day one sacrifice, yeah, we guess. And we going from broke to bees, we invest. Crypto, we grow with ease, we impressing. Free game, believe we been blessed. Streams with ease, X out all of the hate. Get hooked if you want, we just offering the bait. Early on, we could often relate how to navigate crypto and picking our route. It seemed hard, but we figured it out. Our team strong, so we saying be calm, this is what we about. We broke the ceiling. We going from broke to billions. Sex up next, yeah, we plotting the pump. No vex for a hex, yeah, we locking it up. Post chain, no, we not in a rut. With a heart like Richard the Marcus, we best. I'm a day one sacrifice, yeah, we guessed. And we going from broke to bees, we invested. Yeah, we broke the ceiling. We going from broke to billions. Sex up next, yeah, we plotting the pump. No vex for a hex, yeah, we locking it up. Post chain, no, we not in a rut. With a heart like Richard the Marcus, we best. I'm a day one sacrifice, yeah, we guessed. And we going from broke to bees, we invested. With Cuatro Cinco, we been flexing. Cuatro Cinco, holding that Spanish. We alive and decentralized, we'll pin our own price. We holding that canvas. Run it up, we holding that ransom. If it's not your keys, not your crypto. Get low, the hate in the air, cause we hold our own coins. We ain't staking a share. And we ain't playing it fair, we need billions. Going straight to the moon, don't need ceilings. Yeah, she fine as a whoop, don't need feelings. If she sweet, then some of these secrets reveal them. You could peep too, just come subscribe. It's Brandon B, yeah, coming alive. All the haters, we supposed to kill them. Going on this road from broke to billions. We broke the ceiling. We going from broke to billions. Sex up next, yeah, we plotting the pump. No vex for a hex, yeah, we locking it up. Post chain, no, we not in a rut. With a heart like Richard the Marcus, we best. I'm a day one sacrifice, yeah, we guessed. And we going from broke to bees, we invested. Yeah, we broke the ceiling. We going from broke to billions. Sex up next, yeah, we plotting the pump. No vex for a hex, yeah, we locking it up. Post chain, no, we not in a rut. With a heart like Richard the Marcus, we best. I'm a day one sacrifice, yeah, we guessed. And we going from broke to bees, we invested.
That was great. Really great.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Brandon B live stream, folks. This should be a very, very interesting live stream, because in this live stream, I want to point out the elephant in the room that seemingly no one else in this goddamn community is wanting to point out. Folks, the Emperor has no clothes. There is a pink polka dot elephant in the room. And so there's a couple extremely important things I want to go over in this live stream. Number one, before I start off, I just want to apologize for the delays. I was selecting my preferred gender pronouns before the live stream. So as you can imagine, that took quite a bit of time. So folks, before we get going here, why don't you let me know what your preferred gender pronouns are in the comment section below. That way I don't, none of us run into the risk of misgendering each other, as we are all well aware that is the most heinous a crime one can commit. And so I would never dream of misgendering, especially my audience. That would be a travesty, worse than any genocide I am aware of. Kidding, folks. Kidding. Do not clip that out of context. So we have Charity Dunning in the chat saying Queen. That is stunning and brave. Thank you, Charity Dunning, for your stunning and brave pronouns. By the way, can you hear me okay, folks? Like, I always got to make sure my my audio settings are set correctly, because sometimes I'll do a stream and it turns out like the audio is being recorded through my computer instead of the actual microphone. So if you guys can hear me okay, let me know. I also hear myself on stream. Just 1 second. Okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good. We got JB in the house. JB is saying, "Sir, thumbs up." That is a stunning and brave pronoun. Thank you very much. As you are all well aware, my pronouns are, number one, I'm non-binary. Just to start off, folks. So that's incredibly important. But my neopronouns are otherkin. My animal alter is falcon. So just so you guys know, I think it's very important that before we delve into, potentially life-changing financial stuff, that we get that out of the way and spend as much time as possible making sure that we all know each other's correct pronouns, because to misgender someone is the most heinous crime a human being can commit. So, folks, with all this being said, am I lagging? It seems like I'm lagging. Hold on. Let me see if I can do something to correct all this before we delve into the good stuff. Again, no, look, on a more serious note, I was attempting to collect a couple things for this live stream. I do think this is going to be an extremely important live stream. Not only do I want to address a lot of what's been going on said within the Hex community, but I also want to point out something extremely time sensitive that's going on with Pulse Chain that I'm frankly surprised. I'm not surprised, but again, a part of me surprised because I think it's so obvious. But what's become very self-evidently clear over the last couple days, weeks on Twitter is that what's self-evident to one is not necessarily self-evident to another. So before we go on, JB has a powerful, brave, and stunning comment here saying, "What is your safe word?" That is thank you so much for asking that question. You're stunning and brave and powerful. My safe word is potatoes. That is my safe word. So I think it's very important as we continue this live stream that we all take as much time as we need to not only share our preferred gender pronouns, but to also let each other know what our safe words and what our triggers are, because we're all here amongst comrades, and so we got to be aware that there are those that have that are sensitive to different sensory stimuli, and so that we need to be very cognizant of those and make sure that we are inclusive of that. So if you hear me say potato, just understand that I might need a moment, a safe space to go and just process something that's happened, whether it's a controversial thought or a difference of opinion, that kind of thing, might trigger me. And, I might need to take, 10, 15, 20 minutes a week, who knows what it is, in order to kind of, recuperate from that and to process that. And also, goddamn, on another front, for those of you who aren't following me on Twitter, you need to be following me on Twitter, because number one, I think my Twitter's frankly hilarious. Number two, I'm very active on Twitter. Like, guys, setting up a live stream, making a YouTube video. It's oftentimes a lot of prep. You got to set an hour or two aside, right? And so for myself, whenever I'm commenting on the market, I'll oftentimes just do it on Twitter because it's much faster. Like, guys, I was live tweeting my buys of the lows for Pulse Chain and PulseX, and I want to delve into that further as to what I think is going to happen with the Pulse Chain and PulseX prices, what I think is going on short term, plus addressing some of the stuff going on within the community. I frankly think this community has, to some extent or another, lost its mind. And I say that although I'm truly referring to a loud minority on Twitter, I continue to share my belief on different live streams. I've been on Furu lately. Whenever I go on a live stream, I like to mention, and I've been mentioning, I want to mention this more and more, I truly believe that there is a large contingent of this quote-unquote Hex community, Pulse Chain community, people who like and invest in rich art things, that appreciate nuance. I think there's a large segment of the quote-unquote old guard that's extremely maximalist and extremely toxic in their behavior and the way they interact, but not me. And I think there's a lot of you who hopefully appreciate that, because I know I, for one, appreciate that. I remember when I got in this community and I was like, everyone's a toxic maximalist. There's no way that everyone invested in this thing is a toxic maximalist. So I knew that I could, probably, touch on nuance, controversial issues, and there would be people who appreciated that, because I knew that was kind of lacking in the space. And so I do want to address all that. But before I kind of I get too far away from my original point, I do want to share my Twitter, because there's a funny thing I want to address before we delve into the kind of the serious stuff. And folks, guys, if you could like and subscribe, share the stream, I deeply appreciate that. So give me 1 second here. I'm pulling up my Twitter. Okay, guys, so this is my Twitter. And again, we're going to delve into some very serious stuff, sometimes sensitive stuff with the charts, with the price action of Pulse Chain and PulseX, some serious stuff in regards to what's going on with the community. But just let's ease into it with something perhaps a bit more lighthearted just to start off. Number one, this is my Twitter bio. Okay, I have here in my Twitter bio that I'm a non-binary fat activist trailer park person with neo pronouns being otherkin, and my animal alter is Falcon, and I have here that I'm a gender studies major. Folks, I don't know how ridiculous I need to make my Twitter for it to be obvious that I'm joking and this is satirical and this is ironic and I'm not being serious. I cannot believe how many people are seeing this and they think that I'm being serious. Like, I don't know how ridiculous I need to make this thing in order for people to see that it's very obviously a joke. I mean, guys, look, I have NAFA.org here. For those of you who don't know, NAFA.org is the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. I mean, guys, look, how ridiculous do I have to make my Twitter bio in order for people to understand that it's obviously a joke? And look, I find this hilarious because, I've been going off lately on the whole ink discussion, PHEX versus EHEX, what's going on with single side staking pools with pulse X. And I'm going to go on to address all that later on. But like, and like, it's so funny because people, I see like some comments of like, oh, this guy's like a non-binary. This guy's like a fat activist. And I'm like, guys, look, I'm clearly joking. I mean, this is the most absurd Twitter bio I could come up with, in the fact that no one is catching up. Like, no one, not one person in the comments is like, hey, this seems to be like self-evidently absurd. There's an off chance that maybe this guy's not being serious and he's being, funny and trying to be ironic. Maybe it's like a bit of social commentary. No one's had that thought. Absolutely everyone criticizing me thinks that this is that I'm being serious. I don't know, guys. Like, I honestly think, there's probably something a little off with you if you think this is serious. Maybe not. Maybe we live in a society that's gone like, so far down the rabbit hole that you could like see this and think like, oh yeah, this guy's definitely being serious. I mean, I don't know. Am I crazy, guys? You let me know in the comments when you see this. I'm genuinely asking, do you like, let's say you don't know me, would you think that I'm being serious or that I'm joking? Because my impression is that I've made this so absurd that it's obvious that I'm joking. But maybe not. Maybe it's part of the society we live in. If the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance isn't enough of a tip off, I mean, I don't know what is. But you know what? To be fair to the people, I mean, this is a real organization. I mean, guys, let's just, again, we're going to delve into some serious stuff, but like, let's read this for 1 second. 1/3 of the world's population is fat, yet fat people are discriminated against in all aspects of daily life. Guys, look, and also, I'm a fat man myself, all right? So I can make fun of this. I am technically obese. I understand that being fat is unhealthy. It's not good for you. Like, I'm not one of these crazy fat, like, acceptance people who, like, think that planes should be 50 feet wide in order to like accept the 0.1% of the population that's absurdly morbidly obese. But there are organizations out here that I suppose disagree with me. NAFA has worked to make the world a better place for fat people through education, advocacy, and support. We are a multi-generational, intersectional social justice organization creating opportunity for big-bodied people and building community for fat people and our loved ones. Our work towards equality at every size is changing the world. Wow, guys. So this is we got the black BLM. That's cool too. Yeah. So look, we can spend an hour on this page. But look, I just wanted to bring this up because again, like, I find it so funny that people look at this and they don't obviously think that I'm joking. So I just thought that was kind of funny. Let's read what kind of some of you are saying on the comments before we get back to maybe some of the more serious, pressing stuff. JB saying, love the satire and irony. Thank you. I'm glad you notice and appreciate it. Greg Gaines is saying, definitely appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much. Although, how dare you assume my brother? That's kind of a heteronormative there. Like, I don't conform to the gender binary. It's kind of hateful of you, but I guess we can look past it. You're better than Joker, but starting to reach his notoriety. Furu stinks. What? Furu? See, again, this is another thing that we're going to delve into later in the live stream. I've been on Furu Finance's stream a couple times as of late. I really like that guy. I think he's producing some great pulse chain content. I think he's smart. and I think he's been receiving a lot of hate, which I want to address because it's not just about him. I think this speaks to a greater issue with the kind of toxic maximalism within this community. So I do want to address that later on, but just to touch on this now. I like Furu a lot. I think a lot of the hate he's been getting is deeply unwarranted. I think we have a lot of autistic nerds who were never socialized in this community, who are essentially lottery winners, got lucky, and they think they know things. And whenever someone points out that, hey, maybe you got something wrong, they were never taught how to think, so they just like seize up and start lashing out on Twitter because that's the only defense mechanism they have. That they can't admit they were wrong. I'll happily admit I was wrong all the time. Like I've been famously saying, I think ink is garbage. If I end up being wrong about that, come 2025, 2026, I'll gladly say, guys, I was wrong. I didn't see it. I wish I would have listened to you guys. Like, I do not understand. And this is what I want to go on to comment on further later on. I don't understand this attitude of not being able to admit when you're wrong and not even being able to like interact in a discussion, in a debate. I find that disgusting. So, why don't we see what else you guys are saying? The world has become a crazy place, Brandon. Some people are actually that weird in real life. They are. Plus, some people are stupid and just won't get jokes. And that's the other thing, guys. You can't fix stupid, but you can help those who want to be helped. And that's why I'm ultimately going on these tirades. That's why I want to comment on the ink discussion, EHEX versus PHEX, single side staking pools for PulseX, and how this community is seemingly trying so hard to not just avoid commenting on certain truths, but have completely forgotten the principles and lessons taught by Richard Art as to what makes something valuable, as to what makes Hex valuable. And so, I want to comment on all that as we delve into things, but let me just read the comments here. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Bud Fox. What you say about Pepe on Pulse Chain? I wouldn't touch it. I think it's great that the Pepe guys are coming on to Pulse Chain. It's a high risk play. It's definitely higher risk than Pulse Chain, PulseX, and Hex, in my opinion. Look, I think Pulse Chain, PulseX, and Hex have a decent chance of getting 100x in them. So in a case like that, it starts to make a lot less sense to take on the absurd amount of risk you take on with a meme coin. But for those of you degenerates, again, maybe a small allocation towards meme coins, if that means you're able to hold a larger portion of your portfolio in more safer things, arguably, then who knows? That's your decision to make. We'll delve on to that stuff further later on as well. Just saying, fat activists got wrecked sacrificing all in PulseX rec pleb 72%. Yeah, you're probably referring to me. In fact, I did go all in on PulseX. I liquidated my entire life savings in PulseX, and I am indeed down 70, probably 72%, maybe even more. Who knows? I'm 100% down a lot. But again, the way you mitigate the risk of short-term volatility is just to extend your time horizon, and the end goal has always been kind of summer 2025, folks. Like, guys, you got to know the game we're playing. We're playing, we're running a marathon. It's not a sprint, okay? And the marathon has just started. So yeah, you're indeed right, man. I went all in and I'm down considerably, but that's just a short-term problem. I'm not selling short-term. In fact, I've been I don't know if I should say this. Well, I've been mentioning my paid group, so I will mention it now here. In fact, guys, I do have a paid group. So for all of you guys who have a problem with that, I hope you have a problem with that consistently, and not just when you have a falling out with someone that all of a sudden you have a problem with paid groups. Yeah, guys, I do have a Patreon, link down in the description below. If you want to join, not financial advice, but I definitely do talk about what I'm up to. And I've been extremely accurately buying bottoms and taking profits on tops lately, increasing my Pulse Chain position quite considerably. And I've been talking all about that in my Patreon. I even live tweeted one of my buys where I was live buying the bottom. I got so stupidly close to buying the exact, not literally the exact. It's hyperbole, of course, but I got extremely close to buying one of the most recent dips with Pulse and Pulse X. I live tweeted that and mentioned that in my my evil paid group down in the description below. So if you guys are interested in knowing what I'm up to, and it's not financial advice, but there's that option down there. But Fox says they could do 100x before PLS. Maybe, maybe not. It's a high amount of risk. JB saying, I'm far from Maximus. He really is fake guru, smart or not. Anyone fighting E-Hex doesn't understand how Hex is bonded to each other. Okay. So, all right. So why don't we start by delving into some of this more serious stuff? Because look, man, with respect, I think you're very much so incorrect. The bonding and I wanted to wait till later on to address the whole E-Hex versus P-Hex discussion. I wanted to intro it in a bit more properly. So why don't I do that? And I'll come back to your comment, JB, and we'll make sure we address that. Apologies. Okay, so grit gains, and then we'll start delving into the nuance here, into the stream. Okay, so most in this space can't think for themselves. They just do whatever their favorite YouTuber says. That's such a good point, folks. So many people in this community have exported their critical thinking capacity to Richard Hart, and I frankly understand why, because Richard Hart is an extremely smart person who's able to create a shit ton of opportunity for a lot of people. But Richard Hart is a human being. He is not infallible. He can get some things right. I'm disgusted by this sycophantic behavior that so many people within this community have, where they think that pointing out the obvious and criticizing what warrants criticism means that you're some fudster. No, folks, I'm here to tell you that you can be a bull in this ecosystem. You can support Richard Hart and buy Richard Hart things and understand the amazing potential this ecosystem has, and you can still criticize what warrants criticism. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to be a sycophant in order to be a member of this community. Many others want you to believe that you have to be some unthinking automaton, some puddle of intellectual nothingness in order to be a member of this community. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to be. And I think there's a large but silent portion of this community who understands nuance, who understands that people can disagree with each other and it's not the end of the world. Nuance is, in fact, extremely important. And it's actually extremely important to understand risk, articulate risk, be able to have a debate about risk, be able to, be able to interact with people who disagree with you in order to get a different sense of a perspective from yours. You don't want to be some ostrich who sticks your head in the sand and just it says, la, 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 I don't want to listen to any negativity just because you interpret it as not, towing the party line. Like, it's so funny how any noise you make in this community that doesn't exactly suck Richard Hart's dick while gargling his balls comes across as FUD to people in this community. And I'm here to tell you that's fucking ridiculous. You don't have to be a bootlicker. You don't have to be a brown nose. You can understand what warrants criticism and still be a bull in this ecosystem. So why don't we kind of, refer to a tweet here that kind of kicks off this entire discussion? Because, if we kind of refer to, if you guys remember the thumbnail of this whole live stream, it's that meme here. I'll pull it up and we can kind of refer to this and start delving into things more concretely here. So I'll show, hold on. Here we go. So we'll take this down. So let's kind of take a look and examine this thumbnail, because I think that'll give us a sense of really the state of this community. And again, I want to delve into this stuff and also have some very, very important price structure stuff that I want to bring up with Pulse Chain and Pulse X and a bunch of different cryptocurrencies in this community. So guys, I think this will be a really cool live stream. Everyone like, sub, share, do all that good stuff. But frankly, guys, I feel like I'm one of the only ones in this space who's noticing that, like, hey, not everything is sunshine, rainbows, and unicorn. Not everything is 100% uptime, flawless operation. Not everything is going perfectly. Not everything is being done optimally. And I feel like I'm one of the only few pointing that out And I've received so much backlash for pointing out what's wrong. And it's so much absurdity, so much low IQ copium that I really feel like this is kind of the current situation going on. I don't know how many of you guys know about this meme here, but like, I guys, like, there's an elephant in the room. The emperor has no clothes on, and I feel like I'm the only one who notices this. So what I'm kind of referring to here is I want to delve into the EHEX versus PHEX discussion. I want to delve into what's going on with INC, the incentive token. And then I also want to mention what's going on with PulseX and single-sided staking, because I truly think that this community has lost its mind and is forgetting all the principles. And I'm not saying everyone, but a couple very loud people, very prominent people, have very conveniently forgotten the very principles that Richard Hart expounded for years, for years. The first 2 years of Hex being out, Richard Hart said nothing but the importance of tokenomics and game theory. And now everyone has thrown that out the window because now there's a different narrative. The new narrative is, hey, tokenomics and game theory don't matter, and everything's the same because of Hart's Law. Jesus Christ, guys. Like, this is it's so funny. The people from 2 years ago would be laughing their asses off at what the people are saying today within the Hex community. It's incredibly ridiculous. And so, I kind of want to, again, bring up another tweet that kind of is part of the reason why I wanted to talk about all the stuff here. I'm saying, look, here's some realities you need to hear. PHEX is very probably better than EHEX. I want to delve into that. INC has an extremely high chance of underperforming Pulse Chain, PulseX, and Hex by a lot, and tokenomics and game theory matter. Single-sided staking for PulseX is a giant reason to buy and hold PulseX. Removing it objectively hurts the potential price performance. The emperor has no clothes, and I will point it out as long as that continues to be the case. Everyone else can make believe all they want. Folks, I think there's a large segment of this community who has lost its mind, who has forgotten everything that Richard Hart preached the first 2 years that Hex was out. These things matter. Qualitative differences in things matter. Everyone in this community 2 years ago, before all these sacrifice phases started and everyone had to, do backflips and come up with these crazy ways to cope with the absurdity we've been seeing. But everyone has forgotten the principles that makes Hex great in the first place. Well, I haven't. I am here to remind you guys that tokenomics and game theory matters. Qualitative differences in these different cryptocurrencies matter. And I want to remind all you guys, because folks, I'm on a road to go from broke to rich. Okay. Getting this investment shit right matters. I'm not some Hex OG sitting on tens of millions of Hex, and I can just spit utter nonsense over and over again and be wrong over and over again and then be fine at the end of the day. No. For me to achieve financial freedom, I actually have to get this investment thing right. I cannot afford to just invest in bullshit and be wrong over and over and over and over again and not course correct, unlike many of these early Hex OGs who are just lottery winners, got lucky, and think they're smart now. Again, and I'm not referring to the entire community. I think there's a lot of super great, super informative, super productive members of the Hex community. Like, there's some very, very great non-toxic maximalists. I mean, like RH Max, for example. I've been on his stream a couple of times. He is an RH maximalist, but he's a great example of someone who believes in his principles strongly, of being just an RH ecosystem maximalist, but who isn't toxic. I think he's a fantastic example of a non-toxic hexagon. RH Max is. And so, people like that should be applauded and supported. But there's many people in the space who are just so logic devoid. So many people in the space who were never taught how to think logically. It's quite unfortunate. And this is something a lot of people don't understand as well, which is logic is actually something that needs to be taught. Many people don't understand how incredibly important it is to be extremely self-aware of one's own prejudices and one's own psychological pitfalls that gets in the way of you seeing and examining whatever situation clearly without bias. There's so many very, very human pitfalls that people fall into that I think is incredibly important to be cognizant of when discussing any sort of controversial issue, when discussing any sort of nuance. And it's quite clear from the response I've been seeing from tweeting these sorts of things out that people weren't taught how to think. People weren't taught logic. Logic and being taught how to think is actually something people need to put effort into learning. It's not something that's necessarily built into us without it being kind of fostered and nurtured. So, guys, I've been hearing just nonsense from the from kind of my reactions here on the Twitter. So, look, guys, I want to delve into kind of the pulse chain price action stuff. I think there's some very, very interesting stuff going on there, but I do want to also again mention kind of the EHEX versus PHEX stuff, ink stuff, and the kind of PulseX single side segment stuff. So, look, why don't we begin by mentioning kind of the EHEX versus PHEX situation? Because there's someone who brought it up earlier in the comments, and it was kind of the first thing I tweeted out here that kind of is prompting this live stream. So, kind of why don't we refer to that to begin with? So, folks, look, this is simply why PHEX is very likely, very probably better, a superior option over EHEX. So we got someone here tweeting saying, here's the trip. $56 to end stake, an EHEX stake worth $45 at the moment. And you guys got to understand that this is $56 to unstake what is a $45 hex stake in the midst of a bear market. I don't know how many of you guys were around during the last bull market, but I remember how insanely stupid the Ethereum gas fees costs got. Guys, it got up to like several $100s for a simple swap on Uniswap or a simple send transaction. It was absurd, and that was only for Ethereum getting to around $3,000-$4,000. What the fuck do you guys think the Ethereum gas fees are going to be if we get to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 per Ethereum? The gas fees come this next bull market for Ethereum are going to be prohibitively absurd. I will not be surprised if at near the top of the parabola comes sometime summer 2025 that gas fees on Ethereum get into the several $1,000 range. You're sure Ethereum might introduce some kind of scalability. We have a bunch of third-party dApps with Arbitrum and many other ones that are kind of alleviating some of the load on Ethereum mainnet. And we have a lot of these scaling solutions beginning to be rolled out, and that is great. But guys, even if we improve scalability on Ethereum by 20%, 50%, even if we double it, even if we triple it, you got to understand the come next bull market, the amount of users adopting the network, it's going to 5x, it's going to 10x, it's going to 50x, it's going to 100x. So even if we improve scalability on Ethereum by a couple percentage points, even 1 or 2x, which is not at all guaranteed, might take half a decade to happen. But the amount of users using the network is outpacing the scalability. So my point is that gas fees are extremely likely to be a large problem on Ethereum, probably for a long time. And if you're a whale playing around with several $1 million, then perhaps the gas fees are negligible to you. But in terms of retail, which is not nothing, retail does matter. Whales, I think, how whales interact in the system is probably most important, but that's not to dismiss the importance of retail. And if retail is having to pay several $100s to stake and unstake hex, to swap, to buy hex, to send hex around on the network, guys, that's not usable. That's absurd. And we all understood this 2 years ago. This is the reason why Richard Hart launched Pulse Chain. This community all understood the extreme negative impact of Ethereum gas fees and how this problem is likely to be unsolved for quite some time, which is why Richard created Pulse Chain in the first place. This gas fee issue is making it prohibitively expensive to use Hex. That's why we created Pulse Chain. And so it's essentially quite obvious when debating, whether to deploy capital on eHex or pHex. It's the same code, but a different feature set. Where on the one hand, you have stupidly absurd fees, hundreds of dollars to swap, hundreds of dollars to stake, hundreds of dollars to unstake, hundreds of dollars to send, potentially on the Ethereum side, potentially years down the road, or tens of cents to buy, tens of cents to swap, tens of cents to send, tens of cents to stake or unstake. You have these two options: absurd fees or extremely reasonable fees. Where do you think the market is going to deploy their buy pressure towards? I don't know. This is difficult. Guys, so that is one reason why we see that Hex on Pulse Chain is at a massive premium over Hex on Ethereum. Hex on Ethereum is 35% below a penny. Hex on Pulse Chain is 42% above a penny. Guys, and it's not just me, in my opinion, telling you that Hex on Pulse Chain is probably very likely a better long-term hold than eHex, but we also have the Godwill, who sacrificed, I think it was 800 million eHex to the BankX guys, who are known dumpers. They've just been dumping their Hex, and now they're staking it and very likely just continually sell massive amounts of eHex moving forward. We have a known giant whale in this ecosystem who's doing nothing but dumping and suppressing the price. And even if that one person goes away, we already know that the Godwill is willing to send eHex to people who are likely to hurt the eHex price. So as Richard Hart has clearly said countless times in the past, but now everyone has conveniently forgotten this because now this reality affects their own bags. And so everyone's conveniently forgetting what Richard Hart has told us for years, which is what matters when it comes to price performance is whales. You can onboard 100 of your buddies, each one of them putting in a couple of grand. That means nothing if one whale can enter the system and deploy millions, tens of millions, billions. What matters is whales in the whales behavior. We have whales on eHex actively sending absurd amounts of eHex to known dumpers. And even if this one known dumper gets rid of their 800 million Hex, then Godwill can just send their another 800 million Hex continuously over and over and over again to a bunch of different scammers. It is clear that whales in this ecosystem want to suppress the eHex price. And so while I'm not saying that eHex will die, I don't think it will die. What I'm saying is having massive whales in this ecosystem actively attempting to suppress the price and actively able to sell down the price for years to come on a network with absurdly high gas fees makes it rather obvious, in my opinion. I don't know, I might be crazy, you tell me, that pHex, given this whole situation, starts to look like a better option than eHex. And I'm betting I'm not the only one who sees this. I'm betting that people see this situation, see that there's whales actively attempting to suppress the price on eHex. There being objectively a worse feature set on eHex. Therefore, I think it's rather not insane to come to the conclusion that more buy pressure is likely to be directed towards pHex moving forward for this foreseeable future, which is why I come to the conclusion that pHex is probably likely to outperform eHex moving forward in the long term. Now, the only case I can see where eHex might do better, and in this case, this might even only be a short-term thing, is if eHex gets sold down so absurdly that short term, it might be able to outperform pHex just because there's such a massive absurd dump that gets maybe bought up because it just gets dumped to such absurd levels. Where the dichotomy between PX and EX becomes so absurd that the arbitrage opportunity becomes attractive, where you could scoop up, hundreds of millions of hex at super cheap prices. Then in that case, yeah, I could see EX, outperforming short term. And there might be periods where EX outperforms short term just because it's so oversold. But given that we understand that there's whales actively suppressing the price on EHEX, given that we understand the absurd cost of interacting with HEX on Ethereum moving forward, again, guys, you tell me, but I do not think it is unreasonable. In fact, I think it is extremely reasonable to prefer PHEX over EHEX. And you got to be self-aware of what is motivating a lot of people, a lot of the OGs in this community to say, oh no, we're going to have parity. Oh no, EHEX is going to do long term. Folks, is there a chance that maybe what they're trying to do is protect their own bags and their own value, and they don't actually care about what is the most optimal way that their community is going about things? Maybe what they're actually trying to do is protect their own value on EHEX. Did that ever maybe cross your mind as a potential? That's why we're seeing all these Hex OGs talk about why EHEX is some great investment. Guys, the reason why I'm so fired up about this is because qualitative differences matter, okay? Everyone in this community understood that these little nuances in game theory and tokenomics were not just some kind of little thing. It was everything. These little nuances is the reason why Hex was superior to a Dogecoin, why Hex was superior to a Safe Moon. It was because of these little nuances, and we all understood this 2 years ago, but everyone has lost their mind in an attempt to cope with the absurdity we've been seeing. But not me. I haven't forgotten. I remember how Richard Hart spent 2 years saying nothing but that tokenomics, game theory, and these little nuances matter. You are allowed to notice these differences in these things, and these little differences do matter. It's the reason why we see a different chart from EHEX to PHEX. It's the reason why we see whales, dumping, tons of EHEX, essentially making EHEX wildly toxic, making, PHEX the only reasonable place to deploy dry powder. These little nuances aren't just trivial. They are everything. And everyone in this community understood this 2 years ago, but everyone has very conveniently forgotten this in a disgusting attempt to prop up their own bags. It's disgusting, guys, because it's so self-evident, because I've been around a long time. I've seen how everyone is treating these extremely valuable lessons and principles as just narratives, and you could just change the goalpost as things go. For me, guys, this isn't just some, just short-term pump and dump narrative pointing out the importance of tokenomics and game theory that you could just move on when it becomes convenient. No, these things actually matter. These differences will result in there being an extremely different chart come with PHEX versus PHEX come 2025. And while I don't know any of these things for sure, no one knows anything of these things for sure, we can examine these qualitative differences and come to reasonable conclusions as to what's more or less likely to be a more or less optimal investment opportunity. And so, again, everyone understood this. Everyone in this community preached the importance of understanding these principles, of understanding qualitative differences, of understanding tokenomics and game theory, and how the differences in that leads to an impact in price performance. Everyone understood that 2 years ago. But now everyone's thrown that out the window, and it's disgusting. It's self-evident. It's hypocritical. And it's obvious to me, by the way. What else did why is this here? What else did I kind of want to point out with kind of the whole EHEX versus PHEX discussion? Okay, so yeah. So look, that was that. I hope you guys appreciate that rant. Again, guys, if you do appreciate that rant, really, I super appreciate you guys all being here. This stream is just getting started. I still have not even gotten to the super juicy stuff. I still have more I want to comment on the X community stuff. I still have some super important stuff I want to calm down with the price structure of Pulse Chain and Pulse X that no one else is talking about. I'm still surprised no one else is talking about. So, guys, we're just getting geared up. Please, everyone, like and share the stream. This is a brand new channel. Every like, every share, every comment helps out tremendously. In fact, I believe I'm at about 920, 940 subscribers. I'm super close to 1,000 subs. So if you're new to this channel, I highly appreciate you if you subscribe, because we're getting super close to that milestone. You know, most people who start doing YouTube don't make it to 1,000 subscribers. For those of you OGs who know me from back in the day, I had another cryptocurrency YouTube channel, A Million to the Moon, where we got to 36,000 subscribers. And for those of you who know me from back in the day, I hope it comes across that I'm doing all these things from a principled position because I want my people to do well. Back in the day, I made a giant U-turn from talking about tons of different altcoins, tons of different active day trading, to more so talking about Hex when I realized the opportunity in this ecosystem, and that hurt my growth. But I did it anyways because I understood that that's probably a far better thing to do for my community. So I hope you guys appreciate and understand where I'm coming from with all that good stuff. In the meanwhile, why don't we kind of refer back to kind of the comment section here before I keep going. Okay, so let's go from here, and then we'll keep reading some comments. If you want to go from broke to rich, you should broaden your horizons and look outside the RH ecosystem. Crypto has a lot to offer. Yes, it does, but there's so much garbage out there. It's such a landmine, and I'm not aware of any layer one that's likely to outperform Pulse Chain, especially at this point. That's low risk. I'm not aware of any. Guys, look, I'm sure there will be other plays outside the RH ecosystem that do 100x, that do 1,000x, maybe some meme coin. But there's so much risk you got to incur. I'm not aware of any other play that is as a sure thing, and this is just my opinion, as Pulse Chain, with the amount of upside, with the amount of low risk. This is the best risk to reward ratio I'm aware of. So is there some meme coin that might do a 10,000x? I'm sure there is, but I'm not aware of any other superior risk to reward play than Pulse Chain. I feel like we should just wait and see, let everything unfold. Yeah, man, sure. Smart to stake that amount. How long? That was a big mistake in and of itself. Did RH unblock you on Twitter? PLSX price is still falling. No, Richard Art did not unblock me. I was pointing out that single set staking for Pulse X is extremely important, and he blocked me for doing so because Richard Art only supports sycophants. 2 more days till payday. So excited. Right on. I say all this, I bring up these critiques, but I have been buying Pulse Chain. So guys, I'm still a bull. 2 more weeks of pain coming. Hexmos is saying gas fees are solved by horizontal scaling. PLS is not horizontal scaling. IBC is. Cosmos ecosystem is. The next level of DeFi tech people should be focused on. Sorry for the shill. It's obvious though. See, and this is another thing. I don't mind talking about other cryptocurrencies. Feel free. I think it's absurd to pretend that other things don't exist. Again, I hate this attitude of banning people you disagree with, of pretending other things outside your ecosystem don't exist. They do exist, and I think it's very important to keep up with the technology and the progress of things outside the Retard ecosystem. So I don't at all have a problem with you bringing up Cosmos. I think Cosmos as a technology is very interesting, but will it outperform Pulse Chain? We don't know, but I'm more confident in Pulse Chain than I am in Cosmos for sure, personally. Hexavator saying no one wants to talk about pronouns. It's fine, man. It's just a joke. Like, no need to get hung up on it. Those of us who entered the SEC, those of us who entered SAC, I think you're saying, for Pulse X are in deep red, and RH not only cheated us, but continuing to get rich on transactions. I wouldn't agree with that. The vast majority, and I'm going to delve into this as well later on, the vast majority of the SAC funds, or the money that was sacrificed, are in stable coins doing nothing. So I don't agree at all with your characterization. Grit gains, and you got a copy on both chains, so why not focus more on the newest, faster, and cheaper chain? Well, Grit, you're not supposed to acknowledge differences between anything. The new Hex ecosystem narrative is that there's no differences between anything, and that everything's the same because of bonded liquidity. That's so stupid. I'm going to go on to address that later. Oh, actually, no. This is important. Another thing I wanted to address now. This whole argument of bonded liquidity. Oh, there's bonded liquidity Therefore, everything is likely to move the same. This is self-evidently an extremely stupid point when you bring up this analogy in the context of an extreme example. For example, if I create a scam token, let's say I want to create a cryptocurrency that's backed by several weeks worth of patents doing work on novel coronaviruses, for example, right? And I create a token called securely created, accounted, or securely secured. Oh fuck. Anyways, I made a whole Twitter thing about me creating a scam token. If I bond my scam token with Hex, does that guarantee that my scam token will perform well? No, it does not. The bonded liquidity is but one of many factors to consider. Hart's law is but one of many important factors to consider. It is not the end all be all. Just because I bond a scam token to Pulse or Hex does not guarantee that it will perform well. It is just one of many influential factors. What matters a great deal more is buy pressure and how participants in the market behave. So this whole argument of EHEX will perform well because of the bonded liquidity is so stupid and is such a poor argument because it's only one of many influential factors. Okay, just because bonded liquidity doesn't mean that, you know, if there's some massive whale in the ecosystem constantly dumping and attempting to suppress the price, that's not going to matter. That does matter. It matters a great deal more than the bonded liquidity. So thank you for bringing that up. Jim Hall saying I have Hex stakes and will hold the bag in Pulse, but $1 billion in 2-year wait for this. My advice: diversify outside the RH world just in case. That's up to you, man. That's definitely up to you. Whales own Hex on PC as well. According to your logic, this will eventually affect PHEX. Just waiting for that shoe to drop, I guess. Look, man. Whales are actively dumping. The God Whale is actively suppressing EHEX. He is not doing the same for PHEX. The God Whale sent 800 million EHEX to Bank X. He didn't send 800 million PHEX. He sent 800 million EHEX, and he has a shit ton more. He sent that EHEX to a known dumper to suppress the price. Even if that person gets all out, he can just do this again constantly over and over again. So it's very clear that a whale in this ecosystem is attempting to force the market to send its buy pressure to one direction over the other. Again, guys, qualitative differences matter. This suppressant on EHEX does not currently exist on PHEX. There's a difference here. Differences matter. You know, Hexmos and Brandon, do you know what the OA is? Yes, it is the origin address. The OA is very likely Richard Hart, probably some other people as well. It's a huge, messy collection of addresses that are very hard to track. No way to verify that the OA is benevolent. No, there isn't no way to track. There are people tracking. And in fact, I will refer to some of the people tracking what's been going on with the OA later on. Oh my goodness, there's so many of y'all here in the comments. All right, let's see if I can do this more quickly. Are we seeing a great RH schism taking form right now? Is RH takes a step back? What is holding the community together between EX, PX, PLSX? Yeah, exactly. So this is actually a very interesting point. So because Richard has stepped back and now people have to think for themselves, this is why we're seeing so much hypocritical behavior, so much low IQ copium, because now we don't have the big boss man to give us a narrative, and the big boss man is flip-flopping back and forth, which is why we are seeing a lot of people at each other's throats, because the big boss man isn't clarifying things. People have to now think for themselves. And so, you know, these lottery winners who got lucky with Hex early on, who think they know things, are, you know, being self-evidently absurd on Twitter, which I'll now go on to further explain. So, guys, look, I appreciate all the love, all the support, all the subs. There's tons of comments. There's so much more I want to comment on in this live stream. So why don't we continue doing so? Because, guys, I've barely gotten through all the stuff I had planned. So why don't we see if we can do this a bit quicker? So now let's address the whole incentive token discussion. I want to make it abundantly clear to my community that given the qualitative tokenomic and game theory differences between incentive token, Pulse Chain, PulseX, and Hex, it is my opinion that there is an extremely high chance that incentive token is very likely to underperform Pulse Chain, PulseX, Hex by a lot. And I see so many people in this community pretending like they don't understand the difference between anything, pretending like incentive token and Pulse Chain are the same thing. And it disgusts me because I know many of these people know better, and I know that there's an extremely high chance that incentive token is likely to underperform. And it is so absurd that people in this community are make-believing like there's no difference between Pulse Chain and incentive token, and that those differences, even if they exist, don't matter. Folks, to be very clear, incentive token is a token that's created to incentivize the providing of liquidity. When you provide liquidity, you take on risk. That risk is impermanent loss, meaning when you provide liquidity on, let's say, Pulse Chain to DAI, for example, and Pulse Chain goes on to pump and DAI stays at a dollar, because that's the point of DAI, to remain stable. That's the point of a stable coin. You incur what's called impermanent loss, where you get less of the thing that moved more when you withdraw your liquidity. And when you provide liquidity on, something like Pulse Chain to stablecoin, things that are wildly decorrelated, that risk is extremely real. The only way you mitigate that risk of impermanent loss is to sell the incentive token. What is the only way that incentive token is distributed? To liquidity providers. So we essentially have a token that is only given out to holders who have an extremely high incentive to sell that thing in order to mitigate the very real loss of providing liquidity. The amount of low IQ, logic devoid copium I've had to deal with in order to attempt to obfuscate that undeniable reality has been frankly so wildly eye-opening. It's so incredible to me that people for years made fun of other DeFi for having inferior tokenomics, inferior game theory to Hex. You guys got to understand, every Hex OG in this community that you see on Twitter, that you see on YouTube, all of them understood 2 years ago that what made Hex appear to everything else was its tokenomics, was its game theory. And they all publicly talked about this. And now so many of them are make-believing like they either can't understand or don't understand the difference in the tokenomics between incentive token and a Hex. Or now they're arguing that those differences don't matter. The amount of hypocrisy we're seeing from those people is unbelievable, unfathomable, which is why I'm making this thumbnail. There's a giant elephant in the room that no one is calling out. It is so absurd that these people, these Hex OGs, that for 2 years, all they did was make fun of everyone else for having inferior tokenomics, inferior game theory. And now that there's a token that they hold and affects them financially, now all of a sudden, all those same people have thrown all that out the window and now conveniently cannot tell the difference between anything because of Hart's Law and liquidity bonding. The fact that the best thing incentive token has going for it is that it's bonded to something that is better is crazy. It's so funny that I point this problem out and people come to me and say that, oh, Brandon, what you don't understand is that it's bonded to Pulse Chain. So what you're saying is that the best case for that incentive token is that it's bonded to something that's better. So then why would you not and go and buy the better thing than the thing that is essentially a whale exit liquidity token? This is so insane to me that people for years, the only thing they did was make fun of everyone else for not understanding tokenomics and game theory. Now has thrown all that out the window when it comes to themselves, when it comes to their own bags. All that logic, all those lessons learned from years of what Richard was teaching, all thrown out the window immediately as just some narrative instead of some actual principle. And it's so narcissistic. It's so like the moving of the goalpost is so absurd, so self-evidently absurd. So many people in this hex quote unquote community and all you OGs have proven yourselves to be fools who just jump from narrative to narrative. A lot of these people don't actually believe any of this, don't actually believe that these tokenomics and game theory matter. They've proven through their actions that no, they were just all saying the same thing to each other, and the thing they're all saying to each other sounded good to other people. They didn't actually believe in it, because now when it comes to applying the same principles they espouse to themselves, everyone has forgotten the very principles they believed in for the last 2 years. Absurd. Get out of here. There's so many people in this community that are have lost their goddamn minds, and this is essentially how I feel, and this is probably how a lot of people outside this community view things. Like, everyone is trying to make believe like these principles that Richard expounded for the last 2 years now don't matter, now that it conveniently applies to our own bags. It's completely absurd, guys. And look, what we're seeing here is a result of the game theory and tokenomics of incentive token. This is incentive paired against pulse chain. It's just crashing and burning. And people point out, oh, but Brandon, incentive token pumped at the beginning. Incentive token was the best performer. You got to understand that at the very beginning was the point of least sell pressure and most scarcity for incentive token. The game theory and tokenomics of incentive token only get worse as time goes on, as more people provide liquidity, as impermanent loss increases. And as more and more incentive token is distributed to more and more people, the sell pressure only increases, the supply only increases. The game theory only gets worse for incentive token the more time goes on, and they all fucking know this. And they're all make-believing like they can't tell the difference between anything in an attempt to protect their own bags. And it's fucking disgusting. These people will not tell you the truth, but I fucking will. If you guys don't like, subscribe, and share, I don't know what you're all doing in this market, because these people will lie to your face, be massive hypocrites, throw away years of principles at the drop of a dime the moment it becomes financially convenient for them to do so. But not me. I will point out the bullshit, folks. There is a goddamn elephant in the room. There are people coping hard, denying reality, and the fucking emperor has no clothes on, and everyone's pretending like the emperor has clothes on. And I feel like I'm the only person out here pointing out that the emperor has no clothes on, and that the fucking lessons this motherfucker taught for 2 years straight actually matter, and you can't just dismiss them conveniently when it becomes financially beneficial for you to do so. It's ridiculous. Ugh. And we've only gone through EHEX and incentive token. So that's incentive token. I can keep on going, but let's talk about PulseX and single-side staking pools, because this is frankly one of the craziest things that has made me lose not all faith, but a tremendous amount of faith in the intelligence and intellectual honesty of a great proportion of this hex community. Because the fact that we had our very own founder, Richard Hart, come out and spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt over the very use case, the very value proposition of his own goddamn decks, and not only do so, but gaslight his own community into make-believing that he didn't set the design intention for single-side staking, is insane, folks. No amount of copium, bootlicking, low IQ, logic devoid nonsense can obfuscate the fact that to anyone outside our community, Richard Hart tweeting that he never set the design expectations for single side staking and then gaslighting people into make believing that he didn't set that expectation is insane. It's self-evidently absurd. And it's so absurd that the only way for people to psychologically digest this and coherently, coherently put this, straighten this out into one's own mind while being a bull, while being a bag holder, is to deny the very reality and to deny the very problematic nature of Richard Hart doing this, but not me. I'm not some unthinking sycophantic bootlicker. I will point out problems when it is warranted. And guys, unlike fucking everyone else in this community, I paid attention. I listened when Richard Hart said game theory and tokenomics matter. In fact, why don't we listen to a video, one of the many videos of Richard Hart pointing out this exact fact? And folks, please let me know if you guys can hear the audio with this. So why don't we listen to kind of Richard Hart explaining the very importance of tokenomics and game theory? And again, guys, please let me know if you can hear the audio. Yeah, I don't think you guys can hear that. Hold on. Yeah, look, I think this is important that you guys hear this. Yeah, let me try this again. Hold on. Let me share this again so you guys can hear the audio. Share tab audio. Yeah, hold on. All right, can't hear it. Yeah. All right, hold on. I think we should be good now. Let me know if you can hear this.
The only use case that has had any adoption whatsoever in cryptocurrency is speculation and store value. That's it. Period. Hex, now, for speculation, what's the only thing you care about? Price up. Okay. Unless you're an option seller and you care about volatility and stuff, but that's such a tiny percentage. I'm not going to go into it. If you're a store value guy, what do you care about? Price up. Oh, okay. Well, what makes the price go up? People buying more than they sell. Anything else? Nope. Hold on a second. Wait a second. You're telling me that the most important thing in crypto is the price goes up, and that the only way that the price goes up is if people buy more than they sell.
The most important thing in crypto is that price goes up. And what affects that is more people buying than selling. Removing single side staking for PulseX removes a giant reason to buy PulseX and hold PulseX, and gives people a massive incentive to sell PulseX. We recently had a whale sell, what was it, 150, 140 billion some odd PulseX. And he did that right after Richard Hart tweeted out the fear, uncertainty, and doubt over single-side staking with PulseX. We've heard it from Richard Hart himself. All that matters is price go up. What affects price goes up is if more people buy than sell. Why would people buy and sell? What affects people's buying behavior? It's the tokenomics, it's the game theory, it's the narrative. And removing single-side staking from PulseX removes a massive narrative to buy it. Guys, this is so self-evident. Everyone in this community rightfully would have acknowledged this 2 years ago, but because now conveniently it's affecting their own bags, they very, very conveniently forgotten all this, which is absurd. I haven't forgotten. This shit actually matters. Guys, like it's so absurd. And guys, look, I was in a Twitter space with KDP the other day, KDP from Power City. Shout out to KDP. I don't have a problem with her whatsoever. I simply extremely strongly disagree with her on her point of view with PulseX single-side staking. There seems to be some large component of this community who has brainwashed themselves into believing that single-side staking isn't a big deal for PulseX. One of the main things she said, which surprised me, this was kind of a new thing I've heard of single-side staking, is that single-side staking for PulseX never really mattered, and that single-side staking is ultimately like a super silly thing, because if a community wants to, if a token wants to market their token, why not just airdrop it? And I agree, they could just airdrop it, but having that feature set in place for PulseX where people can have a feature that they can go to for the long term that essentially allows the equivalent of them being able to airdrop their token to a large community is single-side staking, and that is a massive, massive value proposition. And Richard Hart 100% set the design expectation of single-side staking pools. He's tweeted about it before. We had it during the testnet. We have the tab open for single-side staking right now live on mainnet. So it went from everyone make-believing that he didn't say this. Now that Richard got all this backlash and people pointed out that he did actually say this, he backpedaled and said, okay, now I'll do it. But now the new narrative is that, this never really mattered in the first place. Tokenomics and game theory, what is that? Again, the emperor has no clothes. Everyone is make-believing that they don't see it. I will point it out that the emperor has no clothes. Okay, if everyone wants to make believe and cope that these differences don't matter, and if they want to throw out the years of wisdom and insight that Richard Hart tweeted just because it's now financially convenient for them to do so, feel free to do that, folks. But if you appreciate nuance, if you appreciate being able to address what warrants criticism, then I highly encourage you to follow this channel, because I'm seemingly one of the very few, if not the only one, who is willing to point things out to the extent that I am. And Richard Hart extremely rightly criticized years ago different cryptocurrencies like Uniswap for being a duct tape on token with no real value proposition, no real use case, which is exactly what PulseX is without single-side staking. Again, everyone in this community understood this was a problem 2 years ago, but now they're trying to do backflips and cope, find some way to make something intellectually incoherent coherent, because it's the only way that they can find a way to cope with the absurdity of what Richard Hart is doing. So if you see here on the thumbnail, I have PulseX with a bunch of duct tape all around it. This is in reference to Richard Hart himself criticizing the Uniswap Uni token, which is the token of the Uniswap swap, the Uniswap DEX, he criticized it for having no real value proposition, no real use case. It's just a duct tape on useless token, and he was criticizing Uniswap for doing that. And everyone in this community understood that. But now that it applies to our coin, now that it applies to our bags, all of a sudden everyone forgot that very conveniently. Isn't that funny how when it applies to our bags, everyone has forgotten this? Isn't that rather convenient? How everyone was making fun of Uniswap. Like, guys, something to understand. There's a difference between tokenomics and use case. What is the use case of Pulse Chain? It is the gas token of this network and has some great deflationary tokenomics. That's the difference. You see the difference? Use case, gas token. Tokenomics, deflationary for Pulse Chain. What is Hex? Hex is decentralized yield. That is its use case. What is its tokenomics? T-share system. Great T-share system paired with great use case leads to great game theory, great product market fit, and great price performance. Now, let's talk about PulseX. What is the tokenomics of PulseX? Buy and burn. Fantastic tokenomics. But what is the use case? What is the use? I'm asking you. You guys tell me, what is the use case? It was supposed to be a governance token. There's no governance on PulseX. So without single-side staking, there's no actual use case for PulseX. It's missing an essential piece of that two-piece system. Do you see how Hex has a great use case and tokenomics? You see how Pulse Chain has a great use case and tokenomics? You see how PulseX has great tokenomics, but no fucking use case without the single-side staking? That is a problem. Richard Heart understands and pointed out this problem with Uniswap, calling Uniswap a duct tape on token with no real use case because you can't do anything with it. That is essentially the exact position that PulseX is in without single-site staking. This is so self-evident, and the fact that I'm the only fucker in this community pointing this out is insane. The fact that no one is screaming this from the rooftops, I don't know what y'all doing. I honestly think, well, I don't blame you because now Richard has backpedaled and has said that he's going to do single-site staking. But how long is it going to take? How well is it going to be implemented? Richard has led on. And another thing too, KDP brought up that behind the scenes in private chats, Richard was saying how he doesn't like single-site staking while publicly leaving this ambiguous. That is disgusting. I can't believe KDP brought that up as like a positive thing that Richard Hart was doing. The fact that he was behind the scenes. Imagine that, guys. In private group chats with these insiders, Richard Hart was talking about how he didn't like single-site staking, but he allowed all of us publicly to make believe that he was going to do single-site staking. How disgusting is that? And the fact that Katie brought that up as like some positive point is insane. Again, look, I like Katie. I like what Power City is doing. I think it's okay to have a disagreement with people, have a difference of opinion with people. I don't think it's the end of the world. With the people in this community are so sensitive. If she doesn't like moving forward, I don't know what to do, man. Like, I cannot just not point out the elephant in the room. I cannot just not point out hypocrisy. I pride myself in being intellectually consistent and not just ignoring realities when it's convenient. But the fact that like the new copium is that, oh, single-site staking was like never great in the first place, then why the fuck was Richard tweeting about it? Why the fuck is he just now bringing this up after weeks after mainnet, allowing us for years to make believe like he was going to actually implement this? And now she's saying that behind the scenes in insider group chats, he was talking about how he doesn't like single-site staking, but publicly he's not clarifying this? Fucking disgusting. And it's only because we're in the Richard community that we're not pointing this out. Okay, if this fucking bullshit was being pulled by any other founder in any other community, everyone in this use case would be screaming from the fucking rooftops about what a problem this is. And the fact that no one is pointing this out disgusts me, and again is the reason why I feel like I'm the only one pointing out the goddamn elephant in the room. And look, guys, I want to be clear because so many people, when I've been pointing this out on Twitter, have said like, oh, okay, why don't you just like get out and sell? No, guys, no. I am still a bull. There is still massive opportunity in this space. I do still believe in Richard Hart. I'm just not some sycophant who thinks Richard Hart is this godlike figure who's completely incapable of ever doing something wrong or ever doing something imperfect. No, I understand very well that Richard Hart is a human being, and sometimes he can do things inefficiently. Sometimes he can do things perhaps incorrectly. So, like, no human does anything correctly 100% of the time. Like, guys, the only thing I've done since for years is been a net buyer. I'm here to tell you guys that you can criticize what warrants criticism and still be a bull. You do not have to be some unthinking sycophant in order to be part of this community. No, you can point out what warrants criticism and still understand the massive opportunity that Richard Hart is creating for all of us. Still understand that, yeah, things are likely to do extremely well over time. But there are certain realities that warrant being pointed out, and I will point those things out. So I hope you guys appreciate that. I could go on further, but there's a lot of comments I want to refer to. I see KG's in the chat. Shout out to KG, man. In fact, later on, I wasn't expecting this live stream to take so long. I was looking forward to mention what's going on with time later on. There was a great update that the developers, KG and the team, brought up not too long ago. There was a Twitter space where they were talking about some developments with the Internet Money wallet. And so I'm looking forward to kind of talking about that a little bit later in the live stream. But I see your comment here. So why don't we kind of answer it? Thought RH never heard of single-site staking and never mentioned it. No, there are tweets. Again, I can't refer to it. I'm blocked. Where Richard Hart tweeted out how He believes that PulseX could have single-side staking very similar to PancakeSwap. Again, there's an illustration, not an illustration. There's something on the PulseX website. I'm not going to go take the time to look through it now, where it says single-side staking. You could stake your PulseX and earn a yield on other tokens. And then we had it on the testnet, and we have the tab open right now on mainnet for single-side staking for PulseX. It is because of those reasons that I believe that Richard Hart set the design intention for single-side staking pools. He set the expectation that we would of the design intention for single-side staking. I want to be very clear. Richard Hart did not set expectation of profit from the work of others. He made that abundantly clear. But he 100% set the design expectation for single-side staking. If Richard Hart said he was going to fork Ethereum and then delivered a BitConnect fork, you can't just get away with that by saying, oh, no profit from the work of others, no expectations. No, that doesn't work, guys. He set certain design expectations. Just like, if Richard Hart said he was going to fork Ethereum and delivered a BitConnect fork, we would all have a problem with that. Same thing with single-side staking. He set the design expectation for single-side staking. And for him to be flip-flopping on this now doesn't look good. So KG also goes on to say, critical thinking is one of the main things that attracted me to this community years ago, and 100%. And that's another thing, guys. You got to understand, for those of you who weren't around like 2 years ago, before this whole pulse chain stuff started, before the sacrifice phases, this Hex community was better than anyone else at pointing out the nuances of tokenomics and game theory. They were better than anyone else. This whole community was extremely good at pointing out the differences between a Dogecoin and a Hex, the differences between a Bitcoin and a Hex, and how these little nuances mattered. And now I see everyone trying to make believe that these little nuances between EX and PX don't matter. These little nuances with incentive token don't matter. These little nuances with PulseX single-side staking don't matter. When for years, all I heard from the Hex community is that these little nuances matter. These nuances were the difference between a 100x, a rug pull, and a 10,000x. For years, that's all they said. And now I see everyone make believing that these little differences and these little nuances don't matter, which is why I'm making this live stream, which is why I've been tweeting what I've been tweeted, and which is why I'm making this thumbnail, because everyone told me that these little nuances matter. And now that it's inconveniencing them, everyone's make believing that these nuances don't matter. Well, I'm here to tell you that they goddamn do. Ball6 Maxi saying, honest question though, Brandon, if you look at the coins that have done single-side staking, they all haven't done well. I don't know what you're saying. PancakeSwap did hundreds of X's. It gets drained during a bear. No, single-side staking only really works during a bull. It doesn't matter. Even if you get 1% yield, that is a reason not to sell your PulseX. That 1% yield that you can sell in a shit token that you can use to buy Pulse Chain over the course of years, that is not trivial. That is the difference between paying off debts, buying a car, putting down money for a mortgage. These little nuances matter, and everyone in this community preach the extreme importance of these little nuances, and everyone's conveniently forgotten that, thrown out the window. I'm here to tell you guys these little nuances still do matter. I don't agree with you. PancakeSwap did hundreds of X's, and that single-side staking was the only goddamn reason to buy PancakeSwap. Forgive me. Yes, Pulse6 Maxi. That's why I mentioned this thing is important. Hex Freedom saying, all right, B, I'm out. Feel better to let it out. Get them with when cheap. It will pump, or I will pump when I'm not sure what you're saying, my guy. Do you think RH is just thought fuck? SS PulseX will hurt Hex potential. Okay, so this is like another point as to why Richard Hart might be thinking about removing single-side staking from PulseX, because the fact that there's kind of some overlap in use case where, Hex's use case is decentralized yield, and it has some great tokenomics with the buy and burn, and essentially, the use case for PulseX is single-side staking, and perhaps that is some overlap, because at the end of the day, it is decentralized yield. But there are some important differences. With PulseX, you'd be getting some yield and really some shit token memes. With Hex, you're getting yield in Hex, a great token that's likely to perform very well long term. So there is that difference there. And even if we grant that single-side staking for PulseX hurts Hex, which I don't think it does, because if you remove single-side staking from PulseX, well, then there's less of a reason to buy, more of a reason to sell. It won't perform as good. And now all these people who are chanting, "Oh, Hart's Law, the liquidity bonding. What matters is liquidity bonding." Well, guess what, guys? Pulse Chain and Hex are all bonded to PulseX, and if PulseX performs poorly, then isn't because of Hart's Law? Then won't that hurt Hex as well? Like, guys, it's so funny how no one's pointing out these truths when they're inconvenient. It's insane to me. So yeah, no, I would argue that, hey, if you remove a giant reason to buy and hold PulseX, that will hurt the performance of PulseX. And since everything is bonded to PulseX, that will also hurt Pulse Chain and PulseX, or Hex and Pulse Chain rather. So yeah, I'm not buying that argument. And so, and even if that were the case, why is this being sorted out now? Why is this being sorted out after 2 years of waiting for the sack phase? Why is this being sorted out now after 2 months of Pulse Chain mainnet? The fact that Richard Hart supposedly behind closed doors in private group chats was talking about removing PulseX single-side staking, but publicly allowing the ambiguity, publicly allowing his community to think that he would do this, is disgusting. The fact that this is just being all sorted out now and wasn't sorted out before is is not good, folks, to say the least. And no one else is pointing this out. I don't understand. Like, am I the only one who's like intellectually coherent and honest and doesn't flip-flop? I guarantee you I'm not. I guarantee you there's a lot of people in the space who are seeing this, who agree with me, who don't want to make noise because they understand that if you deviate from the party line in the Hex community, you're cast out. You're not allowed to acknowledge reality. You can't point things out. You need to toe the exact party line, whatever the narrative of the day is. Before, when Hex was the only RH product, the narrative was, game theory and tokenomics. Now that Pulse Chain and PulseX out, the new narrative is, hey, game theory, tokenomics, that doesn't matter. Throw that out the window. Now the only thing that matters is the fact that there's no difference between anything because of Hart's Law and liquidity bonding. Now everything is the same. That's the new narrative. And if you deviate from that narrative, then you're going to be cast out from the community. You're going to be blocked on Twitter. You're going to be blocked from the Pulse Chain Telegram group chat, which I was. I'm blocked from everything now because I'm pointing out the elephant in the room. You get punished in this community for pointing out the elephant in the room. And so that's probably why we're seeing a lot of people out there not make noise, but silently agree with me. And that's why I feel okay doing this, because I know a lot of y'all appreciate someone who isn't a sycophant, who is able to point out the elephant in the room. And I don't give a shit if these assholes block me, because I'm in this game to get rich. I'm not some Richard Hart dick suck. And pointing these things out matters because I want my people to do well. There is a difference between incentive token and Pulse Chain. Pulse Chain is extremely likely to outperform incentive token. There is a difference between PHEX and EHEX. I think the superior feature set makes it likely that PHEX will outperform EHEX. There is differences in tokenomics and game theory between PulseX and Uniswap, and those differences matter. Okay, it's not just Hart's Law that affects everything. It's but one of many important influential factors. All right, what else are y'all saying? Hex community should hold RH accountable when he screws up and praise him when he deserves it. Absolutely. When Richard Hart does great shit, I'll praise him, guys. Like, I'm still a bull. I'm still in this ecosystem. The only difference between me and everyone else is that I still remember what Richard Hart preached for the first 2 years of Hex being live. Everyone else has conveniently forgotten because it's financially beneficial for them to do so, but I haven't. I'm seemingly am the only Richard Hart believer still left out here because I'm the only one who remembers the seemingly there are others as well, but I don't see anyone making as much noise as me about this whole situation. Hexmos is saying at the moment market cap is much lower than Pulse and tech is much better. In time, the market will follow the tech. This is the part where we figure out that Pulse Chain isn't that good. Yeah, look, Pulse Chain technology-wise is not the most superior thing out there, but I think it'll perform well long-term for sure. And guys, like I say all this, I've been criticizing this community for an hour and 30 minutes, and the only thing I'm doing is buying. I still understand and appreciate the massive opportunity in this ecosystem. You can criticize what warrants criticism and still be a bull. You don't have to be a sycophant. I think it's being sorted out now because things in crypto change from day to day. RH made mistakes, just like any other team. Crypto is fluid. Absolutely. Richard Hart is not some infallible deity. He's a human being just like everyone else. He is allowed to make mistakes. We can point out those mistakes when they happen and still understand that Richard Hart, even though, I'm making kind of fun of him a little bit here, saying he's the emperor with no clothes, duct taping PulseX to the wall with his duct tape on decks. I still understand that on the whole, on the macro, Pulse Chain, PHEX, and PulseX will probably perform very well long term. He didn't expect Pulse gas to be this expensive, and I'm sure he didn't expect PulseX prices to drop so hard. He's trying to figure out and compensate. Yep. JB saying, great stream. We'll continue to listen. Got to do stuff 100%. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate you listening. RH claimed the sacrifices were for freedom speech. Try to criticize RH. He'll ban you in a second. Yeah, 100%. I criticize RH, and I'm banned from everything. I'm banned from the Pulse Chain Telegram. I'm banned on Twitter, RH. Even Mintra.io banned me, by the way. Guys, so this is something else that I'm very happy to point out, which is I'm happy to point out bullshit in this ecosystem. I mean, Corey Costa, shout out to Corey Costa. I think he does great work as well. I think Corey Costa is another great example of someone who's not toxic, who believes in what he believes in strongly and is very principled, but who is not toxic. So I like Corey Costa quite a bit. He was saying in the tweet here, I'd like to start seeing all the projects launching on Pulse Chain start to roll out products that have had 2 years to prepare. There are many, and I won't name names. Well, Corey, I got your back because I will name names. Mintra.io is one of the bigger ones who I think they raised around $10 million. And they are completely and utterly missing in action. They tweet every now and again, but man, I remember Gerardo, who was one of the biggest Hex YouTubers from back in the day. He teamed up with Mintra, and then went around the different streams and raised a bunch of money, and then just poof, vanished into thin air completely in the most hilarious way I've seen. The fact that Gerardo's been completely missing in action after he raised 10 million for Mintra, and the fact that they're extremely inactive on Twitter, and they actually banned me from the Telegram group. I'm not sure why. I just checked recently. I could have been banned from way back when. Is frankly hilarious. I think Mintra is an example of a team who raised quite a bit. I think they raised, what was it? They raised 9.9 million, and they've been tweeting extremely infrequently. Gerardo is nowhere to be seen. And I think they're a great example of a team who's just completely missing in action. That's not to say that they won't launch. I think they will. I hope they will. But God damn it, they seem to be trying very hard to look like a rug pull with how quiet they're being. I'm not saying they are. Again, they probably will launch, maybe, but the fact that they're being absurdly quiet, people are starting to notice. And the fact that Pulse Chain's been out for about 2 months now, it's getting to the point where, guys, look, you've had 2 years, 2 months of mainnet. If you don't start rolling out in the next couple months here, people are going to start to ask questions. This starts to become an issue when you juxtapose it to people like Power City. Guys, I spent a little bit of time criticizing, KDP from Power City's take on PulseX, but I think KDP and Power City has been doing a great job of being extremely public in the community, talking about the progress of Power City. Also, Time and KG from Internet Money as well, I think have been doing a fantastic job of being public, of talking about their updates, about being clear with their design intention. I think they've been doing a great job of being very active in the community, and much more than Mintra. Mintra's completely missing in action. I mean, is Gerardo even alive? He just raised 10 mil for these guys and bounced. But shout out to Time, KG for being very active here. And so I do want to take a moment, since we're kind of here already, to bring up some of the stuff that's been going on with Internet Money and Time, because as I've tweeted before and as I've mentioned in the past, I do think that there is a strong case to be made that Time, the Time token, is probably one of the most undervalued things on Pulse Chain just now, on Pulse Chain mainnet right now. And look, with that being said, I want to make it clear that Pulse Chain, PulseX, and Hex is the majority of my portfolio. I think those are the safest plays And when it comes to other things, I only choose to allocate a small portion of my portfolio into things like time, into things like Power City, and into things like things like that. So I don't want to suggest that, hey, go all in, but for me, I like diversifying into displays into these different plays because it scratches like that degen itch I have. And so recently, Internet Money had a Twitter space pointing out that they've had some updates recently, upgrades for Ledger support. That's good to see. Trezor support, Wallet Connect support. That's actually a very big deal. So when you go and you connect to PulseX or whatever, it'll have MetaMask there. It'll have Wallet Connect, and when you choose on Wallet Connect, now the Internet Money wallet will appear there. So that's super cool. We're seeing some nice developments from the Internet Money team. That's great to see. It's also great to see that the Time token has actually made it, what I noticed, to the front page of the Flux protocol. For those of you who don't know, PHUX right now is the second largest DEX on Pulsion right now, which is doing the second largest amount of volume. And it's great to see that now Time has made its way onto PHUX. There's not a lot of liquidity, but it's just kind of nice to see that Time is getting some adoption here on PHUX. Also, Papa B's token is also getting some traction here on PHUX. The thing that I like about PHUX, and I think it's tremendously useful, is the fact that you can open up pools with disproportionate allocations to each token. Meaning, like for example, if we take a look here at the unburdened lettuce hands pool, it's 45% pulse chain, 45% time, and 10% fiat. So like if you're a new token, you could essentially launch your token and put up 10% pulse chain or 10% stables, like if you're cash strapped kind of thing. So I think PHUX is a great DEX because it allows the easier it allows kind of newer teams for them to deploy liquidity easier, because you don't have to put up 50-50. What if you're a new team and you want to put up $100,000 worth of your token, $100,000 worth of a stable coin, right? Well, maybe you don't have that $100,000. Maybe you can put up your token and maybe just $10,000 of a stable coin or whatever, right? So it makes it easier for new projects to be onboarded, which is why we're seeing a lot of volume on PHUX. Not to mention the PHUX pays fees plus the Flux token for certain pools, which PulseX does not. So that's kind of great to see with the Time token. And also, something just chart-wise, look, I think that Time and other tokens launching on this ecosystem is very likely to move somewhat similar to whatever Pulse Chain does. But with that being said, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we are seeing somewhat of a rounded bottom, where we were previously putting in low macro lower highs and lower lows, but now we're starting to put in higher lows and higher highs, from a bit of a rounded bottom here. So if Pulse Chain starts to pick up, then who knows? Perhaps we can see a bit of continuation with the Time token. Guys, this is not financial advice. All I'm trying to point out with this price structure is that we are seeing a notable constructive development in the price structure, where instead of before we just keep putting in lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, now we're starting to put in higher lows and higher highs, which is good to see. It's constructive to see. Although, again, the price of Time is highly dependent on just whatever Pulse Chain ends up doing. But I did want to point that out. So that's good to see. Now, what else did I want to point out? Furu. I want to mention what's been going on with Furu, because I think Furu is a great example of someone who's been unjustifiably receiving a lot of hate from a lot of people who are trying very hard to cope, and they're attacking him personally instead of addressing the actual issues. And again, I think this is another example of some toxic maximalist behavior from a lot of OG hexagons that I think is disgusting, and that's why I'm pointing this out. For those of you who don't know, Furu, I think, has been the unjustified target of a lot of hate from different hex OGs, including this guy here, Johnny Chaos. So, Furu tweeted at me this morning saying, Brandon, question for Brandon B. If Ink dies, does that mean Hex will die as well? They're bonded. Rich Drought will look like the biggest scammer in the world if Ink died. Guys, fuck. You just don't understand liquidity bonding, idiots. Why do I try and explain complex topics to people who will never understand? And again, he's speaking from the perspective of Johnny Chaos, who's been very publicly wrong about the whole EX versus PX situation. You know, he was saying that there's going to be a parity between EX to PX, and now that he was wrong about that, he's personally attacking Furu Finance, which is absurd. But you know, to be fair, I did point out to Furu that he's deviating from the party line. That's completely unacceptable from Furu. He missed last meeting where you know, Richard told everyone that you're not supposed to point out qualitative differences between everything. Apparently now, again, the new narrative is that everything is the same because of Hart's Law, and now we're just not allowed to point out the differences between anything, which is, again, absurd. And to kind of point out some of the hate that Furu's been receiving, I mean, there's someone, you know, who's a bit of a public figure within the community. I, in fact, even tried to have a conversation with Crypto 7 in the past. I reached out to him after he reached out to me, and he never replied back. But he's saying Furu Finance baits hexagons to go on his show. Some of my hex influencer friends fell for it. I won't fall for it. I don't watch his content. I will never watch his content again. I couldn't care less what he has to say about me. I suggest you do likewise. So again, guys, this kind of stuff I find disgusting. The idea that you can't watch or interact with someone who has a difference of opinion with you is disgusting. Again, like before, I criticized KDP. I still think she's great. Like, again, I don't know what her opinion of me is, but I will have no problem talking with her. And I hope we get the chance to even explore our differences in opinion even more so later on in the future, because I think exploring differences in opinion helps one think better. So, like, this whole attitude of banning someone you disagree with and not talking to someone you disagree with is disgusting. Hold on one second, folks. Yeah, so you know, I went out to reply that like you know, I think this guy's in an echo chamber, and I think the fact that like you can't tolerate hearing a controversial thought is absurd. Again, to point out some of the hate that Furu I think has been wrongly subjected to. I mean, we have Johnny Chaos here. This dude's saying, "Don't forget to sign up for his course, folks, so you too can be a crypto cuck, dreaming of others' engagement." Guys, this is so absurd because look, from my understanding, I don't know the entire context of the whole beef, but from my limited understanding, Johnny Chaos and Furu back in the day were like very, very, very friendly to each other, and they essentially had a falling out because you know Furu was saying that, hey, I think PHEX is better, and Johnny Chaos was saying, no, I think there's going to be parity between the two. I think you could arbitrage and trade the price. So he was, you know, arguing for trading, he was arguing for parity, and that now that he was proven wrong, instead of actually addressing any of the actual criticisms, he's just been attacking Furu personally. And what I find so absurd about this line of personal attack towards Furu is the fact that it's massively hypocritical, not because he genuinely believes anything of what he's saying, because he was massive buddy-buddy with Furu Finance for a long time, and now he's only attacking him personally and pointing these things out after he had a falling out. So he was totally cool with Furu having courses, with Furu having this difference of opinion before he was proven wrong. It's only after he's proven wrong that he's now all of a sudden he has a problem with courses and that kind of stuff. Disgusting, completely intellectually hypocritical and dishonest and inconsistent. This is what I have a problem with. I'm not like, there's a bigger point to pointing out just this one example of just insane hatred that's been misdirected just because Johnny Chaos is having a hard time coping with him being wrong. Instead of actually self-reflecting, he's just directing his copium through hatred towards Furu. Like, if you have a problem with someone selling courses, have that problem consistently. Don't just have a problem with someone selling courses when you have a falling out with them. And before you were all buddy-buddy, had no problem with them selling courses. But now you're proven wrong, you have a falling out, and now you have a problem with selling courses. Get out of here. Completely intellectually dishonest, inconsistent, and hypocritical. And it's not just Johnny Chaos. It's a lot of people out here doing the same thing. So this is absurd. Guys, go subscribe to Furu Finance. He does tons of pulse chain content. I think he's doing a great job. He's one of the few people who was able to have an intellectual discussion in which on a controversial topic, which there might be disagreement. And so that is something that should be applauded, something that should be supported. You know, and I think we should all take that into account and show our support there for Furu. You know, so oh, guys, look, you know, this Hex community, man, like we're seeing so much copium, so much low IQ nonsense. These little differences matter, guys. Like, we're not talking about sports here. Being right or wrong about this stuff is the difference between finding financial freedom or not finding financial freedom. This is why this is just more than just, you know, addressing some personal drama, some personal beef between two people on the internet. You know, that by itself is rather absurd and in a rather like you know, it's a unproductive thing to do. But I think this is productive to point out all these things, because being right or wrong about this is being right or wrong about what you're invested in. This matters, folks. Getting the shit right or wrong matters. Richard R. taught us that qualitative differences matter, that tokenomics matter, that game theory matters, and everyone is conveniently forgetting this. But I'm not. Folks, like and subscribe. I will point out the elephant in the room. I will criticize what warrants criticism. I am still a bull. I'm here to tell you that you do not have to be some unthinking, bootlicking sycophant in order to be a bull in this ecosystem. No, you can have a working operational brain. You do not have to export your critical thinking capacity to Richard Hart and be a bull. And guess what? There's 61 people watching the stream. I know that it's not just us who realize this, but there's a large segment of people out there who are quiet, who realize this as well. There's a lot of these hexicans who want us to think that you have to be some unthinking sycophant who agrees with absolutely everything Richard R. does in order to be a bull. And I'm here to tell you that, guess what? I bet you it's a majority of this community who realizes that you can talk about controversial things. You can delve into the nuance. You can disagree with each other, and it is okay. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to burn a bridge because you have a strong difference of opinion. Again, I have a strong difference of opinion with KDP. I still think she's great. She's great. I still think Power City's great. I don't know what she thinks of me. She could think I'm stupid. But my point is, I think it's okay and a good thing to, in good faith, explore differences in opinion, as long as you're not attacking people personally and attacking, someone's character, as long as you're not throwing names, calling people's names, as long as you're honestly, strongly disagreeing with someone, that's ultimately an okay thing to do. It should be applauded. It should be rewarded. And that's why I think people like Furu are so great, because he's able to talk about these controversial things. That's why I think this old guard like Johnny Chaos, who instead of self-reflecting after being proven wrong, is directing his copium through hate towards Furu, is disgusting. So look, guys, I hope you guys appreciate that my take on that. And look, I think it's not just me who kind of realizes. I think a lot of other people realize this as well. So, is there anything else I had in mind? Kind of the whole Furu discussion. I think that's kind of all I had with that. What else did I have in mind? Oh, okay, guys, look. With all this having been said, I still have something incredibly important to bring up with what's going on with Pulse Chain and Pulse X in terms of price structure. So before I want to get to that, I want to read you guys comments, because you guys are you guys are doing an awesome job of being here and supporting me. By you watching here, by you liking, you subscribing, it shows that you do support someone who is able to have controversial discussions, who is able to interact with nuance, who isn't just some unthinking automaton who just regurgitates everything the boss man says unthinkingly. No, you are allowed to have a brain and be a bull at the same time. Thank you, JB, for that comment. RH claimed the sacrifice is a war for freedom of speech. I think I read that already. A year from now, PulseX Maxi saying, a year from now, do you think you'll be an RH supervillain, Brandon? I'm already an RH supervillain. If you don't toe the party line exactly, if you even slightly deviate from whatever the current narrative is, you're banned. You're ostracized. You're the what is that? What's that saying with the goat where the community will cast their sins onto a goat and send it out into the wilderness, the scapegoat? I will happily be scapegoated, because what I care about at the end of the day is return on investment. I care about 2 years from now being able to fall asleep at night saying, I fucking did right by my people. I helped other people achieve what I'm trying to achieve, because what I'm trying to achieve, it's not trivial. It matters significantly. I'm trying to go from fucking broke to financially free. These little differences matter. These little nuances matter. Everyone 2 years ago understood this and they've all conveniently forgotten it. I haven't fucking forgotten it. The shit matters. I want me and my people to do well, and fucking everyone can ban me. I don't give a shit. They can wreck themselves all day long. I will be intellectually honest, because those are the principles. Those are my guiding principles. I don't understand how to fucking. I'm not one of these, fucking plebs who were never taught logic or how to think, and have exported their critical thinking capacity to Richard in order to be financially free. You don't have to. It is that is essentially, I think, the diagnosis of much of the bullshit we're seeing is that people exploited the critical thinking capacity to Richard Hart. But I'm here to say you don't have to. Did the Bank X scammer also have a copy of PHEX? Nope. The Bank X well, I'm not sure they're scammers, but the dumpers only have EHEX. Pulse X Maxi, he actually likes PHEX and Pulse Chain, so he's good in my book. Yes, guys, I am a massive Pulse Chain, PHEX, and Pulse X bull. I just think that without single side staking, Pulse X will do worse than if it had single side staking. Tin Top, what up, Tin Top? I've seen you around, man. So shout out to Tin Top. I've seen you around. Thank you for your support. What up, Hexicans? Yes, I'm still a Hexican. Mind blowing how you can disagree and still be a Hexican, huh? It's crazy. What if it never pumps? I think it will pump. That's just my opinion. All I did was like a funny comment. JC said to Fru, and Fru blocked me. So sorry. Not a fan, but he got daddy issues. Look, man, Fru's been like getting a lot of hate. So it might be that like when you're receiving an ocean of hate, it might be like hard to differentiate what is sarcasm and what isn't. So I'd say give him another chance. Like genuinely, when you're on Twitter and you're saying something controversial and you're receiving like dozens of hateful comments, and someone like agrees with you and is just saying like a sarcastic comment, it is genuinely difficult to like parse that out and be able to tell. So I would say give him a chance. It's again, he's been receiving an ocean of hate on Twitter. So like again, when you're receiving an ocean of hate and like there's one dude who's like sarcastically saying something but actually agrees with you, it's like for any human being, it's going to be hard to be able to like tell. All right, like again, I mentioned my bullshit about all my like neo pronouns on my Twitter bio. Like look at how ridiculous this is. This is self-evidently absurd, and there's tons of people who aren't able to tell that I'm joking. So like give people a chance is what I would say. But you do you, bro. Hey Brandon, thanks for the positive equilibrium. I appreciate that. Thank you, man. I tried to ask earlier, but I'll ask again. What is your opinion on where Pulse Chain can go to all-time high? Not financial advice, of course. Look, I've maintained that I think Pulse Chain has the capability of doing a 50 to 100x. I'm more so like, here's the issue, guys. I am of many minds when it comes to price performance, because unfortunately there's a lot of good points on both sides of this argument. There's a lot of good points in saying that Pulse Chain might only do a 40, 50x, but there's also a lot of good points that Pulse Chain might do 100x, a 300x, 1000x. And so because there's a lot of good points on both sides of the argument, I'm having a hard time fitting this square peg in a round hole. I'm having a hard time coming to a confident conclusion myself. So the way I think about price predictions is, yeah, I will say I do think that Pulse Chain could do 100x in the day one stack rate. But I think it's far more accurate to follow the parabolic structure of Bitcoin and Pulse Chain and then take profits based off when that parabolic structure is broken. Essentially what I'm saying is take what the market gives you instead of waiting on arbitrary price predictions that may or may not be hit. So, while I do, excuse me, sorry guys. Well, I will say, I think Pulse Chain has 100x in her. I think a far, far more accurate way of taking whatever profits this market has to give you is understanding Bitcoin, understanding the market cycle, understanding the parabola. And again, in my paid group, which I have a paid group, I have a Patreon. If you go to my YouTube, there's a link for my Patreon. If down in the description below of this live stream, and in that group, I do have a extremely in-depth explanation of my take profit strategy, which I delve into detail as to how I plan on taking profits. So again, guys, if you want to support me, if you want to know what I'm up to behind the scenes, that is what that is for. Your support 100% benefits me. I can guarantee you that every dollar of that Patreon group goes to buying pulse chains. So we're, it's pumping your bags, technically speaking. So yeah, look, I do have a paid group, and if you have a problem with that, I encourage you to have a problem with that consistently, and not just have a problem with that whenever we have a difference of opinion. No, I respect people far more who will have a problem with me having a paid group consistently, and not just when I disagree with them. So I hope that answers your question. Shame on you, Crypto Bigfoot. Shout out to Crypto Bigfoot. What up, man? Do you know what percentage of PulseX SAC was stablecoin and what is ETH? I don't know. I do not know that. Yeah, look, yeah. I have the same guess as you. Feel the same way, which is why I asked 100%. Guys, look, I went through a lot in this live stream. I want to wrap things up by talking about what I think is going on with Pulse Chain. I promised this at the beginning of the live stream, and I do want to wrap things up with giving you an extremely important insight into what's going on with Pulse Chain. I'm super surprised I'm not seeing any charts like this right now on Twitter, but this is extremely, extremely interesting what we're seeing with Pulse Chain, because what we're seeing with Pulse Chain is that the volatility is narrowing and narrowing and narrowing and narrowing. What we're essentially getting with Pulse Chain is that we're forming a wedge where we're getting squeezed tight. We're getting squeezed tighter and tighter and tighter into a more narrow and narrow range, which essentially what this means is that in the very near future, Pulse Chain is going to choose a new direction to break out of, because we've been forming and consolidating within a pattern for the last since kind of the 15th of June here, and we're going to break out and attempt to form a new price structure. So we've been forming a price structure for weeks now, and we're very, very, very soon going to break out. And this is very, very significant. There's some key areas of support/resistance that I think we need to keep in mind in order to get some sort of understanding of which the direction which we may or may not go. Number one, first thing to consider here is this resistance line right here. Okay, if we start to put in higher highs and maintain higher highs, get 4 hours opening and closing on new highs above here, that might be a sign of a bullish breakout, especially if we come back down and retest and it holds around this area. That's a bullish sign. Another important resistance area to take note of is the day one average SAC rate. That is the 0.000 and a 1. If we can break above this area, come back down and retest it, hold it as support and maintain it, that is extremely price constructive and very price positive, and is actually an extremely I would consider that a flagpole, a marker, a shift in the sentiment, an inflection point. I would consider that an inflection point. And why so? Because we've in fact before breaking out, come back down and test the day one SAC rate, held, broke below. We've tested it quite a bit. But why would this in particular breakout be an inflection point? This would be an inflection point, and this breakout, I think, would be much more meaningful than all these previous flirtations with the day one SAC rate, is because all throughout this price structure, we spent weeks forming this wedge, forming this particular piece of price structure, and interacting with day one SAC rate again would be a breakout from this price structure. So this would be more significant, more of an inflection point than all this previous price structure combined, because all this previous price structure formed this wedge, formed this price structure, and this interaction with the day one SAC rate would be a breakout from this previously constructed price structure. So it's significant. It's an inflection point. It's something different to note. Now, something else that we might see is a breakout, a rejection, a comeback, and then a breakdown further. Something we could see is a breakdown, a comeback up to test, and a breakdown further. A breakdown, a comeback up to test, and then a bullish breakout once again. So look, there's multiple different things that could happen. Bottom line is we are reaching an inflection point. We are reaching a point in which we are going to break out of a range that we've been in for weeks. We're going to have a breakout soon that is significant, because we will be forming a new price structure after our breakout. And I think we're likely to do so within the next 2 days, we're likely to have a breakout in pulse chain, a major move. And if it's a positive move, then we could see perhaps time continue the higher highs and higher lows. We could see perhaps fiat start to see some positive price performance. And, I did want to kind of hover on fiat for a moment, because fiat is another cryptocurrency I diversified into outside of just richer altcoins that I like. Fiat is an Aave fork. I think they raised around 10 million, 15 million for their SAC. The market cap's 15 million. And I think last I checked, Aave, which is what this is forking, has a market cap here. I'm pulling it up on my other screen. Has a market cap. Here, I'll pull it up. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that, of 1 billion. So, yeah. So for, fiat with a market cap of 15 million to catch up to Aave with a market cap of 1 billion, you can see there's quite a bit of upside potential. And what we're seeing here, folks, is before we were seeing lower highs, lower lows, lower lows, lower lows. What are we seeing here? Higher high, higher low, higher high. We're seeing a rounded bottom, and I'm starting to see this in different places, a rounded bottom forming here with fiat. We're seeing a rounded bottom form here with time. And so I would wager that if we see a bit of positive price performance here with pulse chain, if we have that breakout, and if we see positive constructive buy pressure or price structure rather, then I think we might see continuation with fiat or with time. Or we could break down further, and we might have to wait a couple more months. Regardless, folks, we have the Bitcoin halving come March 2024. We have the bull market come sometime 2025. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We have to wait, 6 months, a year, 2 years anyways. So whether we break up in the short term or break down in the short term, it's still a long game. And I just think there's, we should consider a breakdown, just opportunity. And again, folks, if you like me, if you like what I do, I have been buying the lows and taking profits on the highs very, very well. I bought the low here. I live tweeted to that. I mentioned that in my VIP Discord group. I sold the pump here right at the day one sack rate on Pulse Chain. I mentioned that in my Discord group. And then I bought the lows here at about 9192. And you could refer to, if you join my group, you could see my exact buys and sells. So none of that's financial advice. The point of my group is just to let you guys know what I'm doing behind the scenes. So I have been trading with a very small portion of my portfolio, very reliably well, increasing my pulse chain position by quite a bit, which I'm happy about. But I'm actually not doing anything right now. I'm waiting to see what way this breaks out before I do anything. And I do not encourage trading whatsoever. I've been in this market for years, guys. I think I know what I'm doing. It's a high risk, high reward play. I only trade extremes. I'm not encouraging you all to trade whatsoever. But again, in my group, I do talk about my take profit strategy, yada yada yada, shit like that, right? So, guys, yeah, look, like, subscribe, share the stream. If you guys have any more questions, any more comments, now might be a good time to bring it up. If not, then we might start to wrap up. Look, guys, I just want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you guys for your support. For me, guys, when I entered this community, I saw a lot of maximalism. I saw a lot of people unwilling to interact with nuance, and I found that very wanting. I knew that for myself. I asked myself, why couldn't we discuss, these controversial issues? Why can't we bring up the risk? Why can't we talk about some of these imperfect things? And, I asked myself, if it can't just be me who feels this way. I'm sure there's a large segment of the community out here who appreciates someone who's willing to delve into the nuance. And I think there is. So, guys, this has been a 2-hour long live stream. I was planning to make this about 1 hour. I super appreciate all you guys being here. I will be updating you guys further as to what's going on in this ecosystem. We'll wait to see what way we break out here with Pulse Chain. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll wrap it up here. Until next time, folks. Take care.